Consider supporting the work of Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian by becoming a monthly patron. Your contributions will help keep the resource alive and support its mission. Visit patreon.com/NAHblog to learn more and make a contribution of $3, $5, $10, or $20 per month. Again, that's patreon.com/NAHblog. You can start or stop anytime. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian podcast. I'm your host, Relando Tompkins-Jones. I'm a social worker, social justice educator, writer, organizational consultant, and now podcaster who works to build more equitable and inclusive communities. I am also an aspiring humanitarian. My experiences have shown me that in the process of working for social justice outwardly, it's also important for us to continue to critically examine ourselves, shedding attitudes and behaviors that are oppressive to make room for those that are more inclusive, just, and humanitarian. What is an aspiring humanitarian, you ask? When I say humanitarian, I don't mean humanitarian in the harmful sense of placing ourselves in the role of a benevolent hero who's there to swoop in and save others. I mean dedicating one's life, time, and energy to honoring the ways that our destinies are intertwined. It's about accepting the lifelong pursuit to become more humane to those around us, with the recognition that we lose important parts of our humanity when we allow and enable the suffering of others. It means acknowledging our many contradictions and complications and aspiring to do more, aspiring to do better. It means acknowledging that systems of oppression exist by design and not by accident, and working towards an individual and collective transformation that includes an unshakable belief that our society's safety, viability, survival, and ability to thrive is only as secure as our most marginalized community members. Since 2011, my blog, Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian, has been a place where I've written and curated content on issues of equity and social justice. Through using written word, film, and video, and other forms of media for social justice education, I hope to continue to expand and enrich the narratives about social issues that face our society and to find ways to take action while encouraging others to do the same. Today, the blog and now the podcast is for others who share a passion for that same journey. No matter who you are, where you come from, what your identities are, or what area of work you're in, there's room enough for all of us in this work, and I hope that engaging with the podcast or the blog can move you closer to discovering or reaffirming your answers to the questions that you may have about how you can best be of service. Thank you for choosing the Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian podcast. I'm your host, Relando Tompkins-Jones. One of the things I often heard when I was a student was how mindful, read as careful, we needed to be about our use of social media. I would hear warnings about how prospective schools or employers are watching and the potential negative consequences about sharing or posting about controversial topics. I've heard it's best to be, apolitical on social media and that it is unprofessional to post about anything that could be considered, and I'm putting my hand in quotation marks here, controversial, putting that in quotation marks. So I was challenged by that when I would hear that. And initially I struggled with thinking about why I was so challenged by that statement or that sort of, cautionary warning. And as I continued to grow and develop a deeper understanding of systems of oppression, I came to realize that I was challenged by the labeling of posting about topics that could be, again, in quotation marks, like controversial or being, unprofessional to post about things related to social justice. I was challenged by that because doing so ignored the existence of systems of oppression. So it ignored the reality that being political or being apolitical, is not an option afforded to many people. So like this idea of being apolitical, having the privilege to think that you don't need to be political is just not an option for many people. So there's a quote that I've heard that says, I want my friends to understand that staying out of politics or being sick of politics is privilege in action. Your privilege allows you to live a non-political existence. Your wealth, your race, your abilities, or your gender allows you to live a life in which you will likely not be a target of bigotry, attacks, deportation, or genocide. You don't want to get political. You don't want to fight because your life and safety are not at stake. It is hard and exhausting to bring up issues of oppression, aka get political. The fighting is tiring. I get it. Self care is essential. But if you find politics annoying and you just want everyone to be nice, please know that people are literally fighting for their lives and safety. You might not see it, but that's what privilege does. So, in this week's podcast and thinking about controversy and privilege and not being political, that idea of that being apolitical is actually a thing here. I'm going to share 3 rules, or at least my 3 rules, about posting controversial topics on social media. So basically, what they are is, if you're going to share something, make sure it aligns with your values. The second one is really just be ready and able to defend it. And then lastly, be prepared for the consequences, whatever they might be. So I am not a neutral educator, and I believe that everything is political. So attempting to be apolitical is to make a choice. A choice to ignore the lived realities of people with marginalized identities. The students I teach are often pursuing studies in social work, education, healthcare, or some other form of human service, areas where they come face to face with people whose lived experiences of oppression because of their identities are directly connected to institutional policies that create disparities in the outcomes that they face. So many of the students, the practitioners, the folks that I work with regularly are in areas of human service where they come face to face with people who are marginalized and experience oppression because of some aspect of their identity. And it's really important to recognize that. So when I talk to students about posting on social media, I tell them that if they're going to post something, be it a statement, an article, a video, or something else that in some way raises awareness about the lived realities and conditions of people with marginalized identities, but it could be seen as politicized by prospective employers and other potential places that could offer them some opportunity. Be ready to defend what it is that you write, you record, or you share. I use these rules myself when it comes to my own motivations for starting a blog and sharing on social media and even podcasting now today. I believe that everything we post sends a message, and each message is a call out of sorts to people and institutions who can hold space for it. So when I write or share about white supremacy and why race matters, or about cissexism, or why class matters, among a host of other topics, I'm reaching out to people and institutions who can hold space for and who value the message and conversation, as doing so is consistent with my own values. So there are consequences for refusing to be apolitical. One of which being that some folks might decide to pass on inviting you into an opportunity because your message might be seen as disruptive. But when I think about disruption, I recognize that not everyone is able to turn it off or let it go in the same ways, if at all. I think of Dr. King's message on creative maladjustment, the understanding that there are some things that we shouldn't get used to. I always ask myself, at whose expense is the false level of peace attained by silencing the disruption? It's also a matter of knowing myself as well, because I wouldn't thrive long in an environment that saw social justice education, knowledge sharing, and advocacy as an inconvenience. So those are my 3 rules. Does it align with your values? Can you defend it? And are you okay with the consequences, whatever they might be? If you can answer yes to all those questions, then press on. Thanks again for choosing Notes from an Inspiring Humanitarian, the podcast. I'm looking forward to engaging with you in next week's episode. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To find show notes for this and additional episodes, visit podcast.notesfromanaspiringhumanitarian.com. Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian is a labor of love and will continue to be. Consider supporting the work of Notes from an Aspiring Humanitarian by becoming a monthly patron. Your contributions will help keep this resource alive and support its mission. Visit patreon.com/NAHblog to learn more and make a contribution of $3, $5, $10, or $20 per month. Again, that's patreon.com/NAHblog. You can start or stop anytime. Thank you for joining me this week. Take care.